This isn't so much a eulogy for Mr. Stan Lee, because I'm sure there's plenty of other creators out there giving their own video eulogies, writing their own think pieces on the man's work, commemorating his legacy and his life in a plethora of different ways, through words, art. This is actually more of just a reflection on a little product that introduced Stan Lee into my life at a very young age and helped kind of very much influence the direction I went creatively. Because the guy was so much more than just a creator and writer. He was a spokesman, he was a figurehead, he was a vivacious personality who unashamedly loved to self-promote and to tout his accomplishments, wear his accomplishments on his sleeve. And why not? When you have been able to kind of touch the world in a significant way, not just in the realm of pop culture, but in the realm of morality through the characters that you created that embody virtues and justice and, above all else, personal responsibility. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Spider fans. When you have not just that extensive of a career, but that broad scope of influence, you're gonna find fans and people who appreciate you in all different walks of life, from all different sources. For some of you, you might just know him as that fun-loving old guy in all of those Marvel movies who shows up for about 10 seconds and you get a laugh. For others, maybe you'll just recognize his iconic tones of Excelsior and Nuff Said. I remember when Steve Ditko had a couple of gin and tonics and we came up with the idea for the Lizard. Point of fact, I don't really know if that's how the Lizard came to be, if they were just on a drunken bender and created animal-themed villains for Spider-Man to fight, who knows. You might even just know him as being that guy who everyone reveres at the Comic-Con. But for me, what took precedence before all the Marvel movies, before his showing up in nerd culture flicks and nerd culture shows such as, I guess maybe he showed up in The Big Bang Theory, I'm guessing he did, or Mallrats, for example. Superhero sex organs. What predates all of that for me, even before I knew he was co-creator to Spider-Man, one of my all-time favorite fictional characters, it was this simple VHS. How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. Let me take you back to the 80s. I was about, I think, 5 years old, and apparently I had developed a proclivity for illustration. I was pretty much drawing all the time, and my folks made note of this and went out and purchased this video for me, thinking, you know what, maybe he'll take to heart some lessons of illustration from some people actually in the industry, and he'll do something with that. So this is a VHS co-hosted by Stan Lee and John Buscema, I believe is how you say his name. He's one of the most prolific Marvel artists. There is a book that this is based off of, actually, and I have the book as well, and it pretty much follows the outline of the book to the letter of talking about how you set up dynamic shots, proportions in your figures, inking, page layouts, things of that nature. While I can look back on this video now and actually take those lessons in a more serious mind, as a 5-year-old, it was kind of difficult. It felt like school a little bit. It was school on video cassette here. And at 5 years old, when all you want to do is just doodle away without any limits or without any parameters in mind, having two elderly white dudes come on screen and kind of give you a step-by-step instruction as to properly do it the Marvel way. Even then, I was kind of like, nah, I'm gonna keep doing my dinosaur drawings. But what I do remember from this video that has always stuck with me is the amount of pizzazz and showmanship that Stan demonstrated as he's just giving you this essentially self-help type video presentation with John there providing illustrations. It's what stands out the most to me. Like I said, I can watch this video now and actually take to heart lessons of perspective or lessons of proper inking techniques and things like that. But back in the day, what kind of sold me on engaging with the video was Stan's personality. And at that point, I had no idea that the guy had created Spider-Man. Even if the video cassette should have been a dead giveaway that, this guy, he probably has something to do with Marvel other than just hosting this video for them. I didn't make that connection until a couple years later when I did get into Spider-Man comics. At that point, I've been following Ninja Turtle stuff primarily, and Eastman and Laird have gone on the record in saying like the artistic efforts of one of Stan Lee's fellow co-creators, Jack Kirby, was a big influence for them. I had gotten into Batman because my dad was a big Batman fan and had shared a lot of old-timey Bob Kane Batman stories with me. And then I sought out Spider-Man kind of on my own. It was only through reading past stories, the first couple of issues of the original Amazing Spider-Man run, that I discovered that that guy who had been on this video cassette touting up illustration for comic books as the second coming of Christ, the guy who had so much energy and panache and just knew how to be an effective salesman. It was only then that I put two and two together. And from there on out, I was sold on not just Mr. Lee as a creator, but Mr. Lee as a personality and a person overall. Through kind of discovering a little bit more about what inspired him to create these characters, such as the Fantastic Four or Iron Man or the Hulk, that I began to really take a lot of more serious lessons with regards to the creative process in crafting stories, in crafting characters. Basically, the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man and all of them would never have seen the light of day if it wasn't for the fact that he took a risk to just tell a story the way he wanted to tell it. Superheroes that had issues, that weren't perfect, that could connect and be a little bit more relatable to a reader. It comes through very clear, especially in the early stuff for what we consider to be now the main Marvel Universe. The early 60s stuff with the Fantastic Four. The issues dealing with Spider-Man's personal life when it's in crisis. And though I didn't go the route of professional illustrator or professional artist, it certainly supported and reinforced not just my creative view, but my worldview. I still do graphic design work on occasion, sometimes freelancing, sometimes commissioned stuff. You can see some of my work from the Three Geeks logo and things like that. I appreciate Batman for the ideas of personal discipline and overall goodwill towards others. He embodies those pretty well. Even if he is what a lot of people consider to be a dangerous, psychotic vigilante, he still embodies those values pretty well. Spider-Man, though, it's about coming to terms with your own guilt and having that personal accountability, some would say responsibility, for your actions. It's about owning up to what you can be capable of doing and not denying yourself or others that opportunity to see it shine. And I try to remember that. I try my best to offer everything I can to my work and to people I care about, and try my best to take responsibility for both the goods and the bads that may result from my efforts. Spider-Man taught me that, and so very much Stan Lee taught me that. That lesson is never going to leave me. To people that I'm close with, they know I've always kind of said something to the effect of, I don't believe in role models. I believe you can take great ideas and great lessons from others without having to pay reverence or homage to the individual. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm not revering Stan Lee to the point that now he's this pristine, untouchable force. The man, I'm sure, had flaws aplenty, personal vices, but what I can appreciate and what I can take away from having this individual in existence are the lessons that his stories, his parables, and his characters instilled in me. So, what am I going to be doing probably for the remainder of my week? I'm definitely revisiting How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. I think I need to brush up on my skills a little bit here, and Stan himself knows how to talk to me. Definitely revisiting Mallrats. Definitely going to be going over my Mutants, Monsters, and Marvels documentary, where he's talking to a much more coherent and less stoned Kevin Smith. And definitely brushing up on some pretty awesome old-time stories, ranging from the debut of the Sinister Six to the Ditko Lee collab that is Doctor Strange. What is your own Stan Lee story? I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments below. Rest in peace, Mr. Lee. After a year apart, you can finally be reunited with Joan, your lovely wife, your own personal Gwen Stacy, as you often sometimes cited her as the inspiration for that character. You've earned your rest, sir, and hopefully the creative process and your contribution to it continues onward from here. Enough said.